disabled with their uh, Medicaid, home care, or nursing home applications, and at the same time protect their income, their resources, and their homes. Uh, my background is that I've worked for three prestigious New York City elder care law firms for about 18 years. And from there, I went and opened up my own business, Elder Care Services, and that was almost 12, 13 years ago. And so today's lecture is going to be Medicaid eligibility. So let me start my sharing of the screen. Okay, everybody sees this? Great. Okay, so Medicaid eligibility. So we're going to discuss today the difference between Medicare versus Medicaid, community Medicaid, which allows a person to also tap into home care services, and nursing home Medicaid, which everybody is aware of. So Medicare. Medicare is a health insurance, offers individuals who reach 65 and have had worked for at least 40 quarters, pay taxes. It is also given to disabled individuals 2 years after they become disabled. So when we look at the difference between Medicare and Medicaid, Medicare is a great health insurance. Along with a supplement health insurance, it is the best that the elderly and disabled can have. Can't have any better than that. Medicare pays 80% of the bill, and the supplement insurance pays the other 20%. However, when we look at Medicaid, Medicaid pays 100%. The difference between Medicare and Medicaid is that a lot of people are under the impression that when they have Medicare and a supplement insurance, they are fully covered. They are when we talk about hospitals and doctors. But when we talk about home care services or nursing home care, that's when they end. So the next item is long-term care insurance. Well, a long time ago, long-term care insurance was a great insurance. It actually paid the person's expenses. However, today the prices went up, and a lot of people who take long-term care insurance can only get a limited home care expenses. So, for instance, the way you purchase it is how much do you want per day? $100 a day, $150, $200, and that's how you purchase the insurance. Now, when a person purchases $100 a day, they think that it's an enormous amount of money. $100 a day, $3,000 a month. But what does $100 a day cover today? It probably gives you about 3 hours of care per day. What if the person needs 8 hours or 10 hours? That person would have to keep his long-term care insurance and tap into Medicaid as well, or pay privately. But privately paying somewhere between $32 to $35 an hour can be extremely expensive. And so long-term care insurance was once great. Today, it's helpful for the minimum hours. If a person needs 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, okay, they're covered. So The next item is community Medicaid. As I said before, community Medicaid allows the person to also tap into home care services. So what does Medicaid look at? They look at the income and they look at the resources. So today, the biggest issue today is the resources. A lot of people say that they don't qualify. They're sitting on 300,000, 500,000, $1 million, and therefore they don't qualify because the resources for a single person is $30,182. And the income is 1,677. Most people get more than that just by Social Security.
Is there
So,
anything we can do? Question mark.
so at the moment, allow me to go over it, and then we can go to questions and answers. So at when a person looks at their resources, they get frightened. They say, oh, we don't qualify, and they just skip over the whole issue of Medicaid. When they can actually transfer any amount of their assets to anyone or a trust and become eligible the following month. So presently, we are still sitting under the old law where a person can transfer assets 1 month and become financially eligible the next month. However, the government has already passed a law, they just didn't implement it yet, and they're looking for it to become active on April 1st, 2024. There are talks that they may extend it, but we have not heard anything at the moment. So resources, 30,182. You transfer your assets down to 30,000 or less, and you become financially eligible the next month. So then the next question is, what does a person do when their income supersedes the allowed income that Medicaid allows? And so we look at the next area, and that is a pooled income trust. Don't know if a lot of you heard about a pooled income trust, but the way that a pooled income trust works is that, let me see, we went too far. Pooled income trust. So when a person has income that's above the 1677, anything that's above is called a surplus income. Medicaid wants that surplus income. However, there's a way to protect that surplus income is if a person joins a Medicaid-approved pooled income trust. This trust allows the applicant to deposit the surplus income, the money that Medicaid wants, into the pooled income trust, and they can never get the money back. However, they can send their bills to the pooled income trust, and as long as there's money in the pooled income trust, the pooled income trust will pay their bills. So in essence, having a pooled income trust allows you to use the surplus income that Medicaid actually wants. The bills can be any kind of bill, cable, credit cards, telephone, rent, as long as it's the applicant's bill. So what is the advantage? The advantage is having a home attendant that offers the elderly the ability to stay home longer. Home attendants assist the elderly with all of their ADLs, activities of daily livings, getting dressed, assisted showering, toileting, cleaning, cooking, and feeding. So that was, a quick review of community Medicaid. We now look at the nursing home Medicaid. So nursing home Medicaid has two types of application, one for a married person and one for a single person. So the difference, a married person, an ill spouse, can transfer all of their assets to the well spouse and become financially eligible the following month. Yes, there is a 5-year look back if there are no transfers outside of the couple. The individual becomes financially eligible. A single person gets more complex. Uh, the single person doesn't have a spouse to transfer the assets to, and the spouse is the only person that is exempt. So they either spend all of their money in the nursing home and then apply for Medicaid, or what they can do is gift approximately 50% to a loved one or a trust, purchase a promissory note with the other 50%, and using the proceeds from the promissory note to pay the nursing home. Yes, there is a 5-year look back, but if there's no transfers other than the 50 and 50, the person will become eligible and save approximately 50% of their total assets. So, as you can see, there's never a situation where the person loses all of their money, as a lot of social workers or nursing homes tell the applicants. Basically, this is a short review, and we have covered community and nursing home Medicaid. I now transfer it to Leslie to talk about how to protect the money by putting it in a trust.
Great. Thank you, Jack. Yes.
Right.
So that was a great presentation. We're lucky to have you, Jack, and explain this very simply because it is complex stuff. And again, sorry to everybody for the link not working. I will do a short presentation now, and then we'll take questions, both of us, Jack and I, at the end. And if anybody wasn't able to get on the link that you know, and we will be sending a replay video so people can watch this afterwards. So we appreciate your patience with this. So I'm Leslie Sultan. I am an estate planning attorney, and I'm going to kind of piggyback off of what Jack said. Jack explained the basics, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about the trust side of it. So as I mentioned before, we are recording this, and from a legal perspective, I just have to let you know that what this is information only. It's not legal advice. If you needed legal advice on your case, you would be advised to speak directly with an attorney for your situation. So I'm an estate planning attorney. We also do elder law. I've been in practice since with my business in 2010. I have my little girls. And so we take a personal approach with all the cases because we know how important it is to protect our family. One thing I did want to make sure everybody understood is the value of trust to avoid probate. So I'm going to do a little bit of explaining on what probate is. So probate is the court process required to distribute or take control over someone's assets after they die, whether they have a will or without a will. So if it's called an administration proceeding, if there's no will, and probate when there is a will. And basically, without getting into too much of the history, probate is designed to help creditors. So, although we think it's for the purpose of being able to receive our inheritance, it's actually was designed so that creditors can lend money, but to make sure that they have a way to get it if the borrower dies. So, creditors always get first. Then, once the creditors are paid, then the family can get their inheritance. And this becomes a problem, of course, because there's a long process. New York is one of the worst states to deal with probate. And while the estate is in probate, nothing can be done with any of the assets. They have to be collected, then the creditors paid, and then they can be distributed to the family. So unfortunately, most people don't realize this. And so they either don't have a plan or they've done a will, but a will has to be validated. And so you're in the court system. It's public knowledge. Creditors are tapped into the system, and the minute an estate is filed for somebody that owes them money, they get notice of it. We, as the attorneys, get the mail saying that our clients owe them money. They make sure that they get paid. So, it really isn't about getting the money to the family. It's about making sure the creditors are paid. So, some people think, well, I have a will. Doesn't that mean I'm taken care of? And the answer is no, a will has to be probated. A will you can't just take a will to the bank and say, hey, look, I'm inheriting all this money, give it to me. They have no way at the bank to know that that's a real will, that it wasn't just created in your kitchen. So it has to go through the probate process. During the time until that will is validated, no assets can be transferred, no rents can be collected if you're income property, no expenses can be reimbursed. It's a big holdup and a big delay for the family. And essentially, the family is waiting to get money, but they have to hire an attorney and pay for it out of their own pocket for to make sure that this gets done. If you don't have a will, the state of New York has a plan for you, and it's according to the law. It says who inherits when there's no will. So, for example, a single person with a husband, I'm sorry, a single person, everything would go to their parents if their parents are still alive. If somebody is married, everything goes to the spouse. If I'm married and have children, then there's a division, 50% to the children, 50% to the spouse. After the spouse gets $50,000. It goes on and on. So you have to you could just Google what happens if I die in my state without a will, and you can see what happens. If you don't like that plan, you have to do an estate plan to change it, because otherwise that's the rule. Unfortunately, when there's no will, there's usually a bond required, which delays things, more expenses. You know, if you can't pick up what I'm saying, we want to avoid probate in the courts as much as possible. So, how do we avoid probate? And the answer, which Jack kind of alluded to, is creating a trust. And by putting your assets in the trust now owns the property. So, we're talking about if you have a house, it's in your name, the deed says your name. Now we're taking the deed and transferring it to your trust. Now, the trust is on the deed, okay? The trust then controls everything. The trustee, whether it's a revocable, where I'm the trustee of my own trust, or an irrevocable, where I've appointed a third person to manage my trust, they are in control of the trust. And then they make sure when I pass away, everything is distributed according to the wishes in the trust, just as you have commonly heard of with a will. But the good part is the trustees do not need any authority from the court to make those distributions. It's essentially a contract that I'm making for my estate, for my trustees to pay the money to the beneficiaries, and that contract is legally binding and no court is involved in order to distribute my assets. It's really a great tool. So I'm going to talk briefly about a revocable living trust. This is a trust that I create during my lifetime that, again, distributes my assets according to my wishes, and it can control if I become incapacitated. So, for example, my mom has a revocable living trust. She also has dementia, and she cannot make those decisions for herself. And the trustee, her brother, is able to control everything, and it was seamless, no court involved, and it's been very helpful for us. So the thing that you should know in terms of the context of Medicaid is that with a revocable trust, you are your own trustee. And so you are still in control of those assets. So the only time you're going to get the Medicaid protection is you have to give up the control to a third party. And that's where you get what we call asset protection. And that's what Medicaid is. Medicaid is essentially going to become a creditor. And if you're using Medicaid and you own a house, they're going to put a lien on that house because that's your asset that you have control over, and they're going to seek to collect from that. So just to back up, revocable trust, this is just a quick summary. It can get a little bit more detailed, but it distributes everything in your life, just like an irrevocable. Both trusts avoid probate. Assets in both trusts are immediately accessible to the beneficiaries and the successor trustees, or the person I'm appointing originally. But the revocable trust, if I'm in control of my own trust, I cannot get the Medicaid protection. However, by appointing a third person, they're managing the assets for me, then I get the Medicaid protection. There's a myth that nothing can be changed once you create an irrevocable trust, and that's not true. You can change the beneficiaries and you can change the trustees. So let's say I've appointed my sister. She's going to be my trustee, and I want her to give everything to her kids. But then me and my sister have a falling out. Am I now stuck with my sister, worried that she's going to spend all my money somewhere else? No, I can always change her as the trustee, and I could say I want the money distributed to my favorite charity instead. Okay, but so beneficiaries can change, and the trustees can change. So again, so irrevocable has limitations. The grantor, the revocable is I can change it all of it anytime. So you're really going to want to speak to an estate planning attorney when you're thinking about this to make sure you're getting the plan that fits for you. Don't go online and download a trust. You have to make sure that you're really consulting with someone about what's best for you and your family. Unfortunately, for Medicaid purposes, not everybody has somebody that they trust to transfer their assets to, and that's a reality for some people. But hopefully, if you're listening to this, if you know somebody who's looking to get on Medicaid and they have somebody, a sibling, a good friend, adult child that they want to take over and be the trustee, then they should absolutely consider an irrevocable trust. So again, just in summary, and in case anybody was late, Medicaid is a joint federal state program administered by local governments. It's based on, finances, means, with limitations on income and resources. And every year the guidelines change, although this year it hasn't changed yet. And New York actually has one of the best programs. Even New Jersey, for example, does not offer the same Medicaid services that we get here in New York. Again, Jack spoke about it. You have to be 65 or over for qualifying for certain benefits. A resident of state of New York must be unable to perform at least 2 activities and have less than the 30,000 in countable resources, and that's including all assets. So essentially, you really gotta move a big majority of your assets into one of these trusts, either the irrevocable or the pool trust, as we've just as Jack mentioned, and then be able to qualify. So again, the Medicaid trust is a legal trust that's been carved out to allow people to get the benefit of Medicaid. And again, you can change the beneficiaries. You are entitled to some of the income as well. So you're not allowed to touch the main assets that are in there, but if one of the assets, for example, is an income generating property, that income can go to the grantor. All right, and so as Jack mentioned, there's no look back for the in-home nursing care. If you want someone to come in, there is a look back for nursing homes, which is 5 years. But as Jack said, on April 1st, there's going to be a 2.5-year look back. There is a possibility, hopefully, that April date will be pushed back, because it's been pushed back several times. COVID is the reason that it got pushed back. And so obviously there's still some COVID stuff going on. So we are yet to find out if they're going to push it back again. We probably won't know till April 1st. But it's still a good idea to plan, because it will, likely eventually go into effect. And the sooner you apply for Medicaid and are qualified, you're basically in that system. And so even if the look back period kicks in later, as long as you're qualified now, but don't need the services, then it's just a matter of making an additional request later. Okay, so okay, we went over this, the 5-year look back. So another thing is, we have clients who come to us, they're not having any health issues, but they're thinking about the future, right? If you can move your assets into a trust today and you don't need long-term care in a nursing home for 6 years, you're good. You're going to qualify. In 5 years, that look back period has stopped, and you're now fully qualified. And because you did it while you were healthy, you're able to maximize the benefit of the trust. So we definitely encourage people to do the estate planning as soon as possible if you're able to trust somebody to do that for you. So again, we found it's not for everybody. Not everybody has that third party that they're willing to give control of their assets to. But just keep in mind, if you have someone that's a maybe and they're not behaving the way they're supposed to, if they're breaching their fiduciary obligation, you can always remove them by appointing a new trustee. So that's our presentations today. We're going to open it up for questions. I've left my contact information here. I've also left a QR code in case anyone wants to leave a review if you found this information helpful. We'd love a review that takes you to a Google link. A Google review link that you could leave a review. Just don't mention the part about how the link didn't work. So, all right, thanks guys. And I'm starting to see some questions here. So I'll read from the chat. And also if anybody wants to put stuff, go ahead and speak up, you can unmute yourself. And in the meantime, no questions, just a comment. A great presentation. Thanks, Assad. All right, so does anybody have any questions tonight?
Yes, hi. I have a quick question. My name is Aaron.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation. Both of you did a great presentation. I learned a lot already.
Great.
Quick question. Are you allowed to set up two trusts, one for a wife and one for a husband?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's going to depend on the family, right? So if you're jointly owning things, you might want to set up one trust that's a joint trust. But if husband owns things in his name, wife owns things in her name, and you don't necessarily want to combine them, then yes, husband and wife would set up two separate trusts, and then they can appoint each other as trustees.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If nobody else has a question, I have one more question.
I don't see any in the chat, so go for it.
Okay. Can you set up an LLC under a trust to buy a property?
Yes. So basically you would set up the LLC. The LLC technically has a binder that has membership certificates in there.
Yeah.
The membership certificate is issued first to the owner, the individual who's creating the LLC. And basically what we do is we cancel out that first certificate and reissue it to the trust. And now the trust and the trustee manage the LLC. And that's very important. I like that question. Thank you for asking, because we strongly encourage businesses to be also moved into that trust.
Okay, and what part do you do and what does Jack do? Well, let me just understand the division here. So when I reach out to you guys, I know who's doing what. Do you both do the same thing? You set up the trust?
Yeah, good question. So I'm an estate planning attorney. We set up the trust. Jack does the Medicaid application. So he's an expert, and Jack, feel free to add on to this answer. Jack helps people fill out those applications, because if they're not filled out correctly, they get denied. And then of course the time passes and now you're continuing to pay for nursing home care or in-home care. So Jack's specialty is filling out the applications and helping people qualify. And do you want to add to that, Jack?
Sure. So when it comes to Medicaid, we cover everything except the legal stuff that needs to be done by a lawyer, which is a power of attorney and the trust. However, when it comes to Medicaid, we guide our clients to that. If there's a need for a promissory note, we do that. Caregiver agreements, pooled income trust, we do everything beginning to end. So either the person has a home attendant in place or the nursing home gets paid. And trust part, we get Leslie to prepare it, and then it's a simple procedure transferring accounts into the trust once the trust is created.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
There is a question in the chat about what's the cost to set up a trust. So obviously prices are going to vary depending on what attorneys you talk to. At my law practice, we for an individual, the fee is $5,000, and that includes it's a comprehensive trust plan. So we do the trust for an individual, but that also comes with a backup will. We call it a pour over will. It comes with all the healthcare documents to nominate healthcare decision making to somebody if you become incapacitated, power of attorney, again, being able to have somebody else make decisions if you're not able to, guardianship nominations if that's needed for children, and a few other perks that we throw in there. If it's a spouse, if it's a couple and they're doing a joint trust, then the cost is just 500 more. So it's 5,500, and the spouse gets all of the same at that reduced discounted price. So one trust, but two sets of wills, two sets of power of attorney, etc. Thanks for that question.
Hi, can you hear me? This is Irene.
Hi, Irene.
I have a question. Let's say I create a trust, and while I'm waiting for the Medicaid to be approved, do I need to cancel my current medical? Or I can cancel only when Medicaid is approved? How is it working?
So you threw a couple of questions. One was the trust and one was health insurance. So number one, when a person applies for Medicaid, it doesn't mean that they cancel their health insurance. First of all, if they are on Medicare, you cannot cancel Medicare. You can cancel the supplement insurance, but we don't recommend anybody to do that. If they have a supplement and a Medicare, that means they can pick any doctor they wish. Whereas if they become Medicare and only Medicaid, then they're in an HMO, and that's a network. So one never loses the health insurance. It's only if they choose to cancel it, but it is highly recommended for them to keep it, and Medicaid encourages them to keep it. As far as the trust, you have to watch out, because if you're applying for nursing home care, then you cannot transfer into a trust, because that will create a penalty period or a disqualification period. So it gets a little complicated. So people can, mostly married couples, can transfer their assets to the well spouse, get the ill spouse on Medicaid, and then the well spouse can transfer into a trust. This way, the applicant did not transfer assets outside of the couple.
Okay. All right. Well, my story is not that complicated. I don't have a spouse, and I would like to create a trust in the name of my daughter, and maybe apply for Medicaid.
Right.
A little too early for me for the nursing home, I hope. But that's why I was asking if I needed to cancel my insurance. But I got the answer. I got
You
your
don't have
answer.
to cancel the insurance. And if you
Right.
apply for community Medicaid, yes, you can transfer the assets to a trust, and then the following month you become financially eligible.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks
So
a lot.
what we're encouraging for people like in your situation is, if you're considering doing it now, then you want to do everything ideally in February, right? And then have everything transferred in February. So everything's completed in February, and then you're eligible in March before the deadline, the look back starts. So that's
Okay.
why we rushed to get this presentation out to everybody, to make sure people know that there's a deadline coming up. As long as you transfer everything in February, you're eligible to apply in March.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You're welcome.
Hi, I have a question. This is Josiane.
Hi.
Hi, Leslie. And I think you know what question I'm going to ask. If I am a retiree from government agency. I have full medical coverage. Well, my husband currently gets Medicare and the other 20% is covered by my insurance. So we do get full coverage when it comes to medical. Do we qualify for Medicaid? Because that is also a government coverage. And I was working with Leslie, and when I asked the benefit person at my job, they said no, we do not qualify because they both government coverages. So
No, I never heard of such a thing. So your pension per se from the government is an income. You also get health insurance from the government, and you've worked for that. You don't lose that, but it has absolutely nothing to do with Medicaid or or getting a home attendant, because your government health insurance is not going to pay for a nursing home or for a home attendant. It strictly pays the hospitals and the doctors. So you can have both.
okay. All right, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, if you
Similar
have any
to
questions, you can call me after, because I know we have something coming up, so,
All right, thank you.
yeah.
you're very welcome.
Well, these are all helpful questions. It's really helping, I think, other people, learn more. So if anybody has any more questions, we're planning to end at 8, which is in 10 minutes. We'll take a few more questions, otherwise we'll end early.
Hi, Leslie. My name is Mary.
Hi, Mary.
Somebody want to ask? Go ahead, please.
No, please go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Mary. I would like to ask if I create the living trust because I still have the mortgage. So how much you charge?
Both of our trust plans are the same price, so we don't charge more or less because of revocable or irrevocable. So both of our trust plans, revocable or irrevocable, are $5,000 for single, $5,500 for married.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay, gotcha.
you can potentially do absolutely do a revocable with a mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
And I have plenty of clients who do irrevocables with the mortgage.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just that more lenders don't like the irrevocables. So what you could do is reach out to your lender, let them know that
Mm-hmm.
you're looking into doing a trust, and ask them if they would approve a transfer to an irrevocable.
Okay, gotcha.
And
Thank
if
you.
not, there's still ways that we can do planning without their consent.
Okay, I will contact you.
Okay, thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I have an additional question.
Yes.
I currently own a condo, and if I created trust, I would be interested in putting it in a trust. So my question is, and this is an investment condo. My question is, would I be able to do a 1031 exchange with that? Is that allowed in a trust?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. As far as I know, the trust can do a 1031 exchange. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's really an accountant question, right? Because they're the ones that determine taxes. But as far as I know, that the trusts can purchase and sell assets. Yeah, so that's a really good question. I would double check with an accountant.
I
Okay.
believe that 1031s are for business, not for the
Yeah, investment property.
not for the primary residence.
Right, it's an investment that I own.
Right? You can check with an accountant, but that's what you'll find out. 1031 is for business.
All right.
So a lot of people are under the impression that when they put things in a trust, that it's got restrictions in a sense. It's just like another human being. The biggest problems I saw is co-ops.
Mhm.
that are against transferring property into a trust. But the trust can, as Leslie says, can hold anything, own anything.
Right. The biggest problem that I heard is getting financing if the property is already owned in a trust.
That is correct.
Yeah, that's the hardest part
The
about it.
irrevocables, yeah,
Yeah, irrevocable, yes.
yeah. I mean, hopefully that's gonna improve. I mean, I think lenders are in a tight pinch, so they might be, hopefully lending, expanding that, but yeah. What we've seen is that people will purchase first in their individual names and then transfer to the trust after they get the loan.
Right.
I wasn't going to say that, but you're right.
I didn't say I advise that. I just seen people do it. So my contact information is here. Jack's was on an earlier screen, so if you missed it, we will send out information. Jack will also send a follow-up probably at some point so that if you guys have questions, please reach out to us. And again, anytime, if it's not for you, but for a friend or family member who's paying out of pocket and spending their life savings, as Jack always says, on home care or nursing home, you want to reach out to Jack and he can do an application. And there's a fee to do the application, but in the long run, it's saving a ton of money because that one application fee is going to save years of nursing home costs. And so it's definitely worth it. Same with the
We
trust.
also
Mhm.
we also offer free consultation to everyone, so there's no reason why people shouldn't find out what they can do. It's free of charge, no obligations.
Ah, yes. Thank you for mentioning that, Jack. I forgot we're offering free consultations too. So you're going to get an email from me. Everybody who's attends gets a free consultation as well. So good job, Jack. Thanks. All right. So my email's on there if you guys have any follow-up questions. And thank you all for attending on a Wednesday night, late at night with a not very good working link. And
Thank you, Leslie, for inviting me.
you're welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for having patience to listen to us.